Hi, good morning. Well, book traveller here in Bologna, Italy, northern city, old medieval town. Stood here in Piazza Maggiore, which is a beautiful place right in the heart of this lovely town. And right behind me there is the local museum full of ancient artifacts from this medieval town. And off to my right hand side, the beautiful Basilica San Patronio. Looking up at the old brickwork there is absolutely stunning. And the square here is such a popular place for travellers and visitors to come by. And on every corner of this square in the Piazza Maggiore is some lovely off streets and the old porticos of the architecture of this city. Look at that behind me, absolutely beautiful place. The town itself is just idyllic, really, for a tour of northern Italy. Bologna itself, home of bolognese, and some say home of tortellini if you like your pastas. A great place to come along and sample some of the local cuisine here in Bologna. Lovely day. I'm going to put you up on this shelf here on the edge of the Basilica San Patronio, and a good place for us to have a little look at the life going by in Bologna and to catch up on another couple of chapters here of the sanctuary. I think we'll start with chapter 15 next, and let's see where we get to. The sun's just catching me. When I awoke, the sun was filling the room, cheerful and bright as soap. Cara had been next to me as I slept. I'd been sure of it, and yet there was no dent in the mattress, no sign of her. I looked at the clock and it was startled just 20 minutes until I was supposed to meet Pemberley. I rose, washed, dressed. There was nobody else downstairs in the cottage. The other bedroom door stood ajar. I drank water from the tap, checked my appearance in the glass of the front door, and left. I found the path I'd stumbled along last night, the one leading back towards the lodge, and past the bench where Bianca had interrupted me. I couldn't help wondering what other journeys the path had seen, which other configurations of the island's residents moved through the dark. Anyway, I thought as I moved, I was no longer leaving immediately. I would wait for Cara, and until then I had a commission. As for the island, it might be innocuous after all. Mad Thomas might have lived up to his nickname, the old man's son, might have drowned by his own efforts. The more I saw of this place, the more I understood Cara's love of it. The door to the lodge was unlocked, and the plant-lined corridor was empty. I moved quietly along it, fearing I would disturb any sleepers left after last night's revels. One door, halfway along the corridor towards the glass house, at the back of the building, was ajar, and two voices were discussing something on the other side of it. I leaned closer. Certainly approaching full readiness, I'd say we're there. A woman's voice, not Cara's, it was older, and sounded Californian, much more American than any other voice I'd heard here so far. God, how long I've been waiting for this. It would be nowhere without you, you know. Absolutely nowhere. Nothing a small band of dedicated couldn't do. Now I simply wait for your authorization. I want us to hold off for a bit. I'd rather get it right than do it now. We only have one chance at it after all. Of course, but you know as well as I do how positive the early trials have been. In my opinion, we could action it today. Well, I'm saying we wait a little longer. I have some final elements to consider. Anything I should know about? The woman's voice was tense, and his reply was curt. Legacy. There's something you're keeping from me, John. He made no reply. She continued, frosty now. You can't seriously be thinking of changing your mind. Monroe would be perfectly. I'll think what I like. These decisions are too important to be set far in advance. You don't want to listen to my opinion. He did well making his way here, better than I would have expected. Who did the work underpinning this place? Who's been helping you here for 30 years? I do not need lectures about loyalty from you or anybody else. I'm not giving you a lecture, I'm giving you the best chance you'll ever have to change the world. You know how much I think of you. I'll be taking that chance soon, despite the consequences for us. Whatever these final elements of yours are, whatever impetuous thing you're thinking of, it could ruin everything if you don't tell me, if we don't plan for it. That's enough for one day. I'll take no more instruction from you. As you wish. The project is ready if you ever decide you are. These last words were clipped with disdain and furniture scraped on the floor. Someone was about to enter the corridor I stood in. I just had time to move back to the front door, as though I had only just opened it on my way in. The door halfway along the hall swung open, and Angela Knight walked out. Good morning. Her voice had changed between leaving the room and speaking to me. It was almost unrecognizable. She did not regard me with suspicion. hardly looked at me at all, in fact, and ignored my flushed greeting before proceeding through the front door I still held open, as if I'd been waiting for her. I walked back along the corridor into the house, making myself louder this time. When I got to the room I knew Pemberley was in, I knocked, and in response to his muffled word, lifted the latch and entered. The room was high and airy, with three large arched windows. It faced east, and the early sun streamed in towards me. It seemed to be a chapel of some kind. A small lectern at the front, three long, high-backed pews on either side. Pemberley was sitting on one of them, facing away from me. The thing is, Ange, it's not you who's pulling the... He turned as he spoke, and for a few seconds surveyed me as if he was unsure who I was. It's Ben, I said. You told me to be here for 7. How long have you been here? His tone was sharp. I got here just as Miss Knight was leaving. Good, he nodded. Several seconds passed like that, me standing at the border of the room, him lengthways on his pew. I came to accept your offer, your portrait, for a place on the island, with Kara. Until that moment, I hadn't been sure of it. Saying it now, I knew it was what I wanted. The island felt like home, a real home, in a way nothing else had for a long time. Not the flat, not school, not even Florence. Pemberley merely nodded and rose to his feet. All right. He paced past me into the corridor. First, let's get out of this morgue. He closed the door behind us and locked it, producing a key from nowhere and palming it again. I didn't know you had a chapel. Came with the building. I found it interesting that Pemberley, with his evident mania for changing things to just the way he wanted them, had maintained a religious room. Let's talk in the garden. He led me towards a low oak door at the back of the building, to the left of the glass house. Some debris from last night's gathering was still around, cigarette ends, a few empty bottles, a smashed glass. He picked up a butt and surveyed it. Aren't humans amazing? You buy an island, you create an entirely new way of living, you fill the place with the brightest young people you can, and some people will still find a way of smuggling in fags. He threw it to one side in disgust. I told him how long the sittings would take. What would be required of him? He questioned me closely about the style of painting, although from the nature of his questions he seemed already familiar with much of the process. His whole demeanour had changed since last night. Then he had been overbearing, argumentative, and a caricature of a plutocrat. Now that it's just the two of us, he was quiet, focused, determined. It was like talking to a different man. Any particular touchstones in your work, Ben? Touchstones? How? He sighed, impatient. References, key influences, deepest impressions, all that. Well, if we're talking paintings, probably the depiction of Judith and Holofernes made the deepest impression on me. The one by Gentelshi. It's a story from the Book of Judith in the Apocrypha. Biblical books that. I know the Book of Judith, he said it quietly. Then you know the story. A widow steals into the tent of a monstrous invading general at night after he's drunk too much wine and carefully beheads him with the aid of an old serving woman. Extremely violent. You can see the sword in his neck, and yet she stays so calm. And it moved you because? It's like David and Goliath, but far stronger, I always think. Sex as well as power, and justice defeating brute strength. He grunted, and I continued. Gentileschi returned to the theme a lot. Actually, there is a later portrait of Judith and the servant leaving with the man's head in a basket, but she's looking off to one side as though she's about to be caught, or as if she's just realised something. I prefer that one. He smiled, thin and brief. Where will the sittings happen? I told him that for the best results, I would need something like the studio I had in the city. A small space only, but well lit. We'll think of somewhere. What about equipment, paint, and so on? He listened as I told him what I needed. Yes, fine. Speak to Knight. She'll ask one of her people to arrange it. How many people does she have? Lots. He surveyed me blandly and looked at his watch. When can you start? As soon as I get a canvas. Tomorrow then. There's one other thing. I told him about the final element of my village commissions, shadowing people, being near them in social settings, building up my impressions of their faces until I knew them as well as my own. I may have overemphasized how necessary it was, but I wanted to see how he spent his days. You want to follow me around to see if my face does anything interesting, so you can put it in the painting? I shrugged. Francis had established I'm no good at farming. I don't have anything better to do. It's not your time I'm interested in. He looked at his watch. I'm driving to the Stones in a bit to check on their progress. You can accompany me there. Anything else? One thing, I cleared my throat. Kara. When is she coming back? I don't think it would be right to accept a place while she doesn't even know I'm here. She doesn't know, does she? He put a hand on my arm. She knows you're on the island, Ben. She was a bit surprised, but she's pleased to hear it too. She'll be back in a few days, once she's finished a project for me. Does that sound all right? I nodded, and for a moment, the thought of being here with her, the two of us, young, starting again in this place, making our life together, just like Francis and Joanna, was so overwhelming, I did not trust myself to speak. Pemberley smiled and told me to wait outside the house while he gathered a few things from indoors. Once he was gone, I wandered to an iron table and chairs behind me and sat admiring the lodge. The building had an air of peaceful permanence. It seemed almost older than the trees that surrounded it. Pemberley clearly enjoyed manipulating people's sense of how ancient or modern everything here was. After about 15 minutes, he emerged, alongside Angela Knight. I thought she had left the building earlier. Clearly I had been wrong, and she had merely retreated to a different part of it. Pemberley was still speaking to her urgently as they reached me. Not nearly fast enough. Understood? Of course, John. Good. Ben, there you are. Let's do this. Angela, you got the files through? She offered him a folder she held, and he opened it up and laid it flat on the table before me. Right. Which men, Ben? There was a grid of faces in front of me, the men who extorted you outside Freeborn. I looked at him blankly, and he explained. Angela told me about them. I didn't expect, I was about to say, I hadn't been trying to get anyone in trouble. That would have been a lie, though, and he picked up on it. What, you didn't expect consequences? We need to know who, without integrity, the firm is nothing. The grim faces stared up at me from the glossy sheet. This one, and I think this one, but I'm not entirely. Good. They'll be let go immediately, Angela. I'll have it done in 10 minutes. That's the stuff. I started saying some words of surprise or gratitude, but the matter was clearly closed. Ben, this way. Pemberley moved around the building. I followed him. At the front was a standard electric cart. It seemed like he really did treat himself as an ordinary resident, at least some of the time. We got in, the engine whined, and the green flicked past. So many trees here, I said. I'd have guessed the forest was more than a couple of centuries old. It's why I bought the place. His voice changed. Wer mit allen Baumen zu sprechen, ihnen zu hören weiß, der erfahrt die Wahrheit. He who knows how to speak with and listen to ancient trees shall learn the truth. He glanced at me. Is that Hesse? Goodness, what a little scholar we have here, he snorted. So how does this observation process work? You just have to go about your business. I'll see you as you move, the way your face changes, the muscles in it. It all helps. Good luck getting anything out of me. Oh, you'll be an open book. He didn't smile. After a few minutes, he said, from nowhere, Wonderful woman, your Kara. She's been looking for an opportunity like this her whole life. Exactly what kind of opportunity would you say that is? An important job in a place devoted to the future, but one that pays enough to live. Maybe even enough to get a place in a village, though that sounds rather silly now. Not at all. They're good places to live, although you clearly didn't think much of them. He spoke casually, but glanced at me as he said it, gauging my reaction. What makes you say that? You're not the only one who observes the human face. Every time the villagers come up in conversation, you flinch. Why don't you like them? Really? Really? All right, I chose my words as carefully as I could. I spend my time working for people who can live in your villages, and I'll never, ever become one of them. You should have chosen better work. It's not just me. Most people can't. That's why I don't like them. The young work for the old. Only the old can afford village life. Only the young have the skills to make them work. People literally live outside the walls like servants, running the place. I paused. It's medieval. He smiled, as though I had revealed something without knowing it, but I went on. When this happens, a caste of people cut out their own future. People who could have made something of their own lives in another system. You get riots, slave uprisings. I shrugged. And yet here, Ben, is an island of youth and opportunity for a chosen few, chosen by you. Is that why you're so critical? Because one person is in charge? It feels like a rich man's toy. I know you think it's a serious prospect for the future, but the whole world couldn't live like this. He paused, and I could sense him choosing his words. I think they could, Ben, if they only saw. This place provides the essentials people need: food, shelter, stability, energy, the essential ingredients of civilization, and it adds to things we've been missing in the West for 2 centuries: nature, peace, society. If we had done this 100 years ago, Nala would have been one of a million elephants on the planet. I suppose that doesn't matter to you. Of course it fucking matters. I hadn't meant to lose my temper, but he carried on as if I hadn't spoken. That word you used, toy, it's interesting. People love to trivialize toys. I think they're the most important thing on the planet. Children invented the wheel. Did you know that? They played with little toys with wheels, and later they grew into adults who remembered their childhood games and created full-sized wheels. The world today runs on a child's toy. And the island is your toy, I sighed. Forgive me, I just think I'm predisposed against the extremely wealthy. It's too easy for people with your resources to do damage, even unwittingly. He laughed. You think it's enjoyable having this kind of money? You think anyone's built for it? I can assure you they're not. Drives most people mad, completely mad. He shook his head. Most wealthy men have no idea what they're doing. They can't see what their responsibilities are. They can't see they're meant to be grabbing the wheel, showing the way. So they buy another yacht or another house that takes the place of 1,000 trees. They don't look out of the private plane and see the earth below. They only look in. He spat out the side of the vehicle. Billionaires. Then, what good do the villages do? There are tens of thousands of young people working in the villages, Ben. Young people who now have all the skills needed to run the world. That's not worthwhile. Not if they never get the chance. We'll see. He braked suddenly. We'd been climbing for a while now, but here the path broadened, the grass at its sides well trodden, as though crowds sometimes passed this way. He stopped the cart and towards me. We're here. Chapter 16. Here was a broad green bowl beneath us, finally free of the trees, overlooking the sea, but far above its noise. At its centre were two circles of yellowed megaliths, aged and weathered, but massive. The smaller inner circle was intact. The huge stones further out had collapsed at a couple of points. Around them, at our feet, was a stone amphitheatre descending in layers towards the central circles. I looked out beyond the cliffs and saw a dozen pillars of rock, as tall as the island itself, ridged 100 times and impossibly gnarled. Pemberley followed my gaze. Like those? The Devil's Chessmen, phony name of course, but rather striking in their way. What is this place? These circles, I mean. Made by the initial inhabitants, whoever they were, for religious or theatrical purposes, or both. Unique, as far as anyone knows. It's remarkable. Here's Latham, our man in the past. A hunched figure was sitting at the base of the steps, measuring a seat and writing something in a notebook. As he heard our footsteps, he jumped up, stashed the book safely in an inner pocket, and buttoned his tweed jacket. He was younger than me, I reckoned, but looked older, prematurely aged. Morning, Victor. Good morning, John. Latham moistened his lips as if to oil them up before attempting a smile. It was a brief smile, jerked upwards like a marionette's string, and then dropped just as quickly. If I could have identified a reason, I'd have said it was nerves. Quick progress report from you, please, Vic, on our options for this space. Of course, Latham's looks were well concealed by his beard and his comically tiny glasses. His hair was a vague brown, and I thought how easily he could lose himself in a crowd. Then, I had been asked a question without hearing. Sorry, Vic here was wondering if there was anything you wanted to know. How could there have been the population to create a theatre this size? It looks like it could fit over 1,000 people. Did the island support that many? There's a lot we don't know. The forest cover makes excavations very difficult, you see, Latham added with a nervous glance at Pemberley. Not that it's a problem, of course. The island probably didn't support nearly as many people as it does now, although they would have had millions of seabirds at their disposal. Flesh to eat, fat to burn as fuel, feathers for bedding and warmth. A whole society just based on eating the birds. Pemberley interrupts him. Vic knows my theory. This is where the last remnants of the Greek Empire fled as their world ended, and where they desperately tried to recreate the things they had known, hence the theatre. Latham's face twitched, as though he'd heard it before, but must raise a smile now, and I drew Pemberley's attention with my next question. What could have killed them off? Murdered by their own slaves, I expect. Quite right, too. Pemberley gave me a look. Excuse me, Ben? Private meeting? He and Latham walked off, around the seating, pointing at bits of them as if planning to install more. I couldn't believe I'd spoken to him that way in the cart. All the things I'd wanted to say I had said, and he had not accepted them exactly, but he'd listened. I was trembling just thinking about it. What had I done? He could send me away now, no question. Perhaps he'd been waiting for just this moment. I'd be sent home, without Kara. Without her, back in the city, by myself, where would I live, and work, and age, all without her? My throat squeezed shut, my skin prickled. I focused on the stone seat in front of me. The shape of them was curious. Each one was uneven. But in almost the same way, I could hardly breathe now, or so I felt. Ben, Pemberley was next to me. Latham was nowhere to be seen. Sorry, You're breathing very fast. Regulate that. Take a big, deep breath in. In, that's it. Now let it out. Slower. In again, that's it. Look at me, Ben. I looked, and there he was, the man who had built this little kingdom sitting next to me like a bull beside a lamb. There, you're doing better already. I did feel calmer. Keep it up and cool off. Come to the cliff when you're ready. I sat in silence for a few minutes, and my panic ebbed, leaving behind a wash of shame. I approached him as I looked out over the edge. Feeling better? Yes, much, thank you. It's an adjustment a lot of people get a bit alarmed after a while here. The thing that made me panic wasn't the thought of staying here, it was the thought of going home. He nodded, understanding. You can stay, Ben. We've agreed it. You plus Kara when she gets back. She's important to this place. And as for you, I'm not put off by you talking back to me. We need people with courage, Ben. People who ask difficult questions. Really? Really. I've been thinking of saying my next words for a couple of hours now, in spite of Bianca's warning. The dining hall reminded me of somewhere, actually. And where was that? He was looking down towards the sea below, and I said the next word quickly before he made eye contact again. Hillcrest. That got his attention. His head snapped upwards and his whole face changed. You went to Hillcrest? I did. 7 long years. I asked you the other night where you were educated, and you said some school in the south. You lied. I wasn't sure you wanted me to say in front of people that I knew the building, so I made up something else. A lie. On the island. At my table. His voice was low. I would have preferred it if he'd shouted. Who else have you told? Nobody. I thought of Bianca, the closest person I had to a friend here. Nobody at all. I should send you back to the mainland for your deceit. Perhaps I will. He was breathing heavily as if barely keeping himself under control. There was only one thing I could say to improve the situation, something I'd divined from his tone. I don't know if you enjoyed Hillcrest as little as I did, but if I had the money, I must say, I wouldn't have rebuilt it. Pemberley shook his head irritably. You don't know what you're talking about. You can't stop the past growing out of you. It's like trying to stop your fingernails. He paused, then looked at me sideways. You disliked life there? I hated it. It was true enough that I could say it with conviction. If it wasn't for the art, I'd have run away, but it gave me a sense of purpose and something in this world to defeat. Being what? The people around me. The complacent people who didn't have that purpose and didn't have to struggle. We looked at each other for a few seconds. I resolved not to drop my eyes first this time. I'm very disappointed about this deceit of yours, Ben. Very disappointed indeed. He moved close to me, close enough for me to feel his breath. If he wanted to push me off the cliff right now, there would be no witnesses, none but Latham, and he would have the lack of nerve to tell anyone. Absurd thought. Disregard it, I told myself. Breathe. I think there are similarities between us, I went on. Don't look away, I told myself, don't look away. I think I see the world the same way as you. Do you now? Yes, I don't think you like the villages either, actually, or the people in them. This was the moment of supreme danger. Pemberley's eyes widened, and yet he kept control of himself. Then he let out a long, slow breath. The moment had passed. I had seen something true, and he had acknowledged it, and this time he was the one who looked away first. The tension in the air slackened. I'm sorry, I miss painting. I haven't painted for days. My hand is practically twitching. We can do something about that, he paused. Have your observations this morning gone as planned? Not exactly. I thought not. I'll show you one more place here, and then you can get to work. We stood, and Pemberley waved farewell to Latham, who was standing 100 yards away. We were almost back at the cart when Pemberley's head swiveled around. Hear that? I'd heard nothing, and he stood poised for a second, as pointed and still as a gun buck, before he heard whatever the noise was once again, and started moving quietly towards it. It was the edge of the tree line, sheltered and hidden among a tangle of roots. A small bird, not one I recognised, badly injured. Its wing had been crushed somehow. It gave another cry as we approached, high and small. It's a green-shanked chick, poor thing. Pemberley knelt and picked it up. You're a long way from home, aren't you? What hurt it? Probably one of the predator species, or there are a few traps still around, metal ones. Might have caught himself in one of those and crawled far enough away to die. Might have just lost a fight. He gently ran a finger along its back. The creature was terrified, but too close to death to twist around and defend itself, and he kept speaking to it in the same slow, cooling tone of voice he'd used on me a few minutes earlier. There you are, my girl, there you are. Not long now. Very soon you'll see. All of this will be gone away. He gathered his thick fingers into a ring and pinched the bird at the base of the neck until there was a tiny crack, and it went limp. It may have been the right thing to do, but I could not keep the note of accusation from my voice. Why did you do that? It wasn't going to live, so I helped it die. Yes, but I could have nursed it back to health, yes, and in time it took another three entire species would probably have gone extinct. It takes courage to end something. Most people don't have the strength to administer the final twist, but the world owes a lot to the few who do. He stood and brushed from his knees the clinging earth. Are you going to leave it there? Of course, food for something. Look at how much life there is around it already. Beneath the little body, a grub was passing it by, a small red thing, and Pemberley leaned down. See that caterpillar? Rebels large blue. Maculanae revellae. You know what they do? They are liars. They make the noise of an ant, specifically of a red ant queen. The ants nearby hear its song, pick it up and take it to their home and feed it, all the while listening to the wonderful regal noises it's making. They do absolutely nothing for it, everything for it. They make its life as easy as it can be. Does it always work? He gave me a sidelong glance. Not always. Sometimes the caterpillar picks the wrong kind of red ant. It gets taken into the nest and devoured. Very dangerous life going somewhere full of your enemies. He bared his teeth a little. But if it gets it right, it gets everything it needs until it's finished growing. And what happens then? It erupts through the side of the ant heap, destroys the place that gave it life, and escapes. He paused. Moral or not? I don't think morals apply. I find it a little shocking. I think it's wonderful. We walked back to the cart and he started the engine. Where now? I asked. Further north. We'll see the birds. Must be quite a life for Bianca seeing all your plans, helping them to fruition. I paused. But it must be daunting for her too, thinking of everything the island needs to keep it going. Why's that? We hit an incline and he jabbed at the gears. Well, she'll have a role here one day, I presume. I mean, as your daughter. For several seconds, the whine of the cart was the only sound around us. Ben, you were paying no attention last night. The hereditary principle, that assumption, look where it got us. It's another natural principle we've walked beyond recognition. Nobody is well adjusted enough to spend their entire life getting ready to inherit what I've put together. And I wouldn't put Bianca through that. She's had a difficult life. He seemed angry to be even discussing this, but kept talking. It was as if I had knocked a hole in a barrel, and even if I wanted to hand her the place, it would be against everything I've worked towards. This idea of the son or the daughter, everything passed to them automatically. It's what's wrong with the world today. I wouldn't. No, I inherited nothing. But that's how it should be, Ben. These empires we've built up over the years, these huge pyramids of wealth, he gestured at the passing island, they're what has brought this world to the edge of ruin. Wealth and luxury. It all comes from inheritance, from the piling up of things, the holding of old age allows. What we need is youth, young people who know how the world works, who can run the place free of generations above them. You understand me? I think so. But it seemed he could not help returning to the subject of Bianca. All I will say is, my daughter suffered terribly at her mother's hands. It's taken years to return her to the healthy, happy young woman I always knew she could be. I remembered his cruelty to her last night in front of everyone, the injured eyes she had cast around the circle, the thought of her eavesdropping on us from the floor above, the sight of her waiting on a darkened path to proposition a man she hardly knew. I realised Pemberley was waiting for a response from me. Of course, and we drove on. That's the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17 of the century will come from maybe another spot in Bologna, or perhaps on my next travel destination. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the view here of the beautiful Piazza Maggiore.